All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be a review of this knife, and this is the Ocaso Solstice. And this is from the new knife company, Ocaso, which I heard of on Instagram. I saw some of their Instagram posts and really was interested in them in large part because I saw this knife and saw who it was designed by. Now, then one of my friends who actually did recently start a YouTube channel, so you can check out the link in my description to his channel, and he is a relatively newer collector, but has a focus on left-handed knives, so if that's something that appeals to you, definitely check it out. But he did get some knives from Ocaso and had a good, basically, warranty or service experience with them, and so I was very interested in their knives, and especially when I heard that the owner of Ocaso Knives, Rick, came from a background with cold steel, and that was the connection between Ocaso and the designer of this knife, which is Andrew Demko. So if you are familiar with Andrew Demko knives, you probably are thinking the same thing that I was thinking when I first saw this knife, which is that this looks very, very different from his normal designs. So Andrew Demko was a designer for cold steel for a long time and now has his own line of knives. And here's a couple cold steel knives designed by Andrew Demko. So very different looking, very hefty, very kind of hard use type designs with the guards on both the butt end and the guard side here, or the blade side here to hold your hand in place. Tall drop point style blades, just very different from this Ocaso Solstice. So I thought that was really interesting to see that kind of a range from Andrew Demko. And I went to Blade Show and got the chance to talk to Rick of Ocaso Knives, and he seemed like a really nice guy, really passionate about this new company, about the knives, and really about getting to work with great designers like Andrew Demko, which again, who he knew through Cold Steel. So I love checking out new knife companies and knives from new knife companies. If you watch my channel, if you follow my channel, you know that it's something that I really enjoy. And so I was really excited to get the chance to check out some of their knives. Now, this knife, when I got it, I was really impressed. I did do an unboxing, so you can check that out. I was really impressed with just basically how nicely it is made. I actually like titanium liner locks. This is a titanium liner lock, so titanium handles on both sides. You've got this really deep carry clip here, but then it is a steel liner lock, and I really like that, and I want to kind of defend the titanium liner locks. I think sometimes people look down on it as it's like, I don't know, less fancy or something like that, but really it has some upsides. So first of all, especially on a thinner knife like this, one of the upsides is that you don't have to worry about pressing on the lock bar while you're trying to flip the knife open. So for example, on something like this, a ZT-0561, if you press down on that lock bar, it makes it very difficult to flip the knife open as it should. And because this is a liner lock, because this scale here on this side doesn't allow that, you don't have to worry about that. You can hold the knife as hard as you please, and it'll still flip. The detent is going to feel the same no matter how you're holding the knife. And I really appreciate that, especially again on a thinner knife like this. For someone with kind of chubby, clumsy fingers like mine, it's a nice thing. The other thing is that it makes it so you don't have to worry really about lock stick and galling and all of that. Now, if a knife is a titanium frame lock and has an insert, a lock insert, then you don't have to worry about that kind of thing as much. But I have actually had some titanium frame locks that didn't have lock bar inserts basically stop working, so I couldn't use them anymore because the softer titanium of the lock would stick to the harder steel of the blade and eventually create wear and then create galling, so it sticks really, really hard. So I ruined some knives that I really liked, to be honest, so I'm happy to see that that won't be something you have to worry about on this knife with the steel liner lock. Now, an interesting thing is that there is only a liner on one side, on the lock side. So it's a little thicker, I believe, on the lock side than on the non-lock side, because there is no liner on this non-lock side. Not something that's a functional, issue whatsoever, but just something to be aware of. When you do look at the knife here, you can see that it's a little wider looking on this side. Now, speaking of the detent, this knife flips very, very nicely and is very smooth. So flipping it here like so, you can see it flips open really nicely, drops closed, and with a little bit of a shake, will go the rest of the way. So very, very smooth. This one has no blade play when unlocked side to side, really solid there. And then when locked, no forward and back play. I think that my friend had some lock slip, but mine don't have that. I do think that they must have worked on it, because you can see that this locks up, around 40%, something like that. I really don't think that you're gonna have to worry about it. And I'm sure that, I really got the feeling that Rick of Ocaso Knives wants these to be very, very high quality and well made. So I'm sure if there was any sort of issue with the geometry, it was fixed, and it certainly is on mine. At least I only have a sample size of 2. Actually, I'm going to show you the other version here, but you can see same deal on this version. It locks up not shallow. It locks up so that you're not going to have any lock slip. Now this one is a little teensy bit off center, as you can see, a little bit towards this side, and then same on this one. So I don't know if that is something where it's maybe kind of like a mirage, or like a something like that, because this scale is wider, but it does look like they're both slightly off center towards the show side. Now, as for the ergonomics of this knife and the cutting, it's pretty interesting, because this is a really slender knife. It has an interesting shape here, kind of a straight line here, and then a corner. It's not a curve really, but a corner, and then it widens here because it is pretty much straight on the back. So it's a very simple handle, and that if you watch my channel, that I think that a simple handle makes for an ergonomic handle, and that is the case here. I feel pretty good about the shape of this handle. I don't think that this knife is made to be a super hard use, like I don't know, batoning or something like that, like maybe those other Andrew Demko designs that I showed. But for normal use, it certainly is fine. I have relatively short fingers and wide fingers, and I can easily get a full 4-finger grip, and don't have any trouble getting the whole way around it. So I really do like the ergonomics of this knife. It feels good in my hand. The pocket clip doesn't get in the way at all. And I think that being so slender, it's going to carry really well. I carried this in like shorts, as well as in kind of like dress pants, which I'll talk more about that later, but it carries well. And then the thing that I did wonder about with this knife, being that it is so slender, is how it would cut, because sometimes when you have a blade that is pretty short, as in the length from the spine to the edge, they can be relatively thick because there's just not as much width to get that nice thin grind. So in comparison to something like this, you can see the difference there in the width of that blade, and therefore the width of the grind. But it actually cut really well for me. I used this to cut up food for my son, cut it into little pieces, and it cut well. Cutting boxes, it cut fine. I don't think this is gonna be the sliciest knife out there, but I think that it's gonna work well for your normal tasks, and it is in S35 VN, so it's a good steel. Everybody's completely wacko fired up about MagnaCut. I think MagnaCut is great, but I think S35 VN is great also. As you can see, it is made in Taiwan, so it's made overseas, but I think if that's something you care about, you should probably prefer Taiwan over, China. So if that is something you care about, it is made in Taiwan, not in mainland China there. So they aren't able to share the OEM, but I think that these are made by a very well established and commonly used OEM. So if you possibly have a knife that's made in Taiwan like this, you might be familiar with the type of quality that you're gonna get. That's a light version of the 8015, but they're well made. We'll just say that. They aren't able to share the OEM, but I think that you're gonna get a nicely made knife. Now, as for the kind of use and design of this knife, I really think that the Solstice is a gentleman's knife. So I personally carried this to, I think, 2 weddings, and it works great for that. You know, it actually looks more like a pen clip in your pocket than like a knife. So if you look at this, you're just seeing the clip, and it looks pretty much like a pen clip. So if you want to be kind of low profile, that's pretty low profile as clips go. So I think that that's a good thing for a gentleman's knife. Then it also, like I said, is just easy to carry. You know, if you have lightweight slacks, something like that, it's not going to be a big, you know, hunk of steel in your pocket that's going to take up all of your pocket and, you know, make it look kind of silly. So I think that that's a great thing for a gentleman's knife. And then it just is good looking, and with the titanium is pretty classy looking in my opinion. I love this Ocaso pivot. It makes it so it's not going to spin, it's not free turning, and it just looks good. It gets the brand on there, then you have the model name on the blade and the, you know, location and steel. Pretty simple, not a lot of billboarding. So I think a really nice modern gentleman's knife. I felt good carrying this at a wedding. A lot of the people knew that I was into knives, so they asked me what I had, and a lot of them were impressed with this knife, and again kind of immediately recognized it as a gentleman's knife. So these are really cool. Now these are about $200, so they are not like super inexpensive knives, but again, made really well. And I think that the fact that they're designed by Andrew Demko is interesting enough to me to justify picking one up. But I have really enjoyed getting to check out these Ocaso Solstice knives designed by Andrew Demko, and I really appreciate the opportunity that Rick from Ocaso Knives gave me to check these out. So if you're interested in these, make sure you pick one up. Reach out to Ocaso, let them know that you heard about them on Knife Thoughts. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below, and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos on knives like this. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.